Hello, okay, so in this video I'm going to explain how to do reverse linear interpolation. So in the previous video we went from, say, the median or the lower quartile, and we worked out what frequency that must represent, and then we worked out what was the median time spent on homework, or the lower quartile, what time was that spent on homework. Now this time we're going to go from knowing a time and go back to find how many of students had that time. So it's like the opposite. Last time I went from frequency over to time. Now we're going, in this case, time over to frequency. Now I'm going to complete the question 1, and then afterwards I'd like to try question 2. Right, so let's get going then. So estimate the number of students spent between 45 and 60 minutes on their homework. So first of all, we look at 45 and we've got to find what group that's in. Now 45 minutes is in between these two, and what we have to realise is that this data is not continuous. So like before, we need to make this data continuous. If you're not sure how I'm doing this, look back at the previous video where I explain it. But basically, we're making sure that there's no gaps in our data. So this one, rather than starting at 51, will start at 50.5, so it's joined up with that one. Okay, so we're looking at this group because we're looking for the 45th minute. So we draw something like this to represent the class, and you put the lower class bound up here, the upper class bound up here. 45 minutes is going to be roughly over here, and then on the bottom we've got the lower cumulative bound, so we go along to our cumulative frequency. Again, if you don't know how I got this, look back at the previous video. So the lower cumulative bound is 42 for that class, and going along for the upper bound is 72. So we write that on there, and we're looking for x. So like before, we do small line divide by this big line is equal to this small line divide by that big line. So let's work it all out. So the top small line will be 45 subtract 40.5 divided by the big line will be 50.5, take away 40.5, and on the other side we're going to have this small line, which is x take away 42, divided by 72, take away 42. Now we want to start simplifying everything. So this over here simplifies to 4.5, the denominator simplifies to 10, and that numerator we cannot simplify, we leave it as x minus 42, and this one simplifies down to 30. Now you want to times both sides by 30, and in doing that, I'll write it over here, times by 30, and in doing that you'll get rid of this denominator, because divide is obviously the opposite of times. And over here, when you times a fraction by a number, you just times the numerator. So with 30 times 4.5, then that's divided by 10. We can be a bit clever here, because 30 and 10 share a common factor of 10. So we can just divide through by 10, and then we're left with 3 times 4.5, which is 13.5. So we know x minus 42 is equal to 13.5. Add 42 to both sides, and x must be 55.5. So we know that that value of x there is 55.5. Now, in the question asks us to find the number of students who spend between 45 and 60 minutes on their homework. So here's 45, so it's got to be how many students are above 45 in this class. So we want to know how many students are between x and 72, above 45. So to do that, we do 72 subtract 55.5, and that should give us an answer of 16.5. Okay, so that's the first bit done, so we're going to remember that number. Okay, so this is what we worked out in the first bit. We realised that there was 16.5 students between 45 and 50 minutes in this group. Now you notice it's 16.5, and we know we can't have 0.5 of a student, but that's because we're doing an estimate and we're using continuous data, so we don't mind about the decimal point this time. Okay, so now we need to work out how many students are below 60 in this group. Now you'll notice this group goes up to 60, so you might just think, well, it's the whole group, it's 22 people. But it's not, because we have to make this continuous. So this will be 60.5, and that down here will be 50.5. So again, we need to draw something like this, and we put the lower class bound over here, upper class bound over here, and looking for the 60th, so it's going to be right up the top. And then we want the lower cumulative bound, which is 72, and the upper cumulative bound, which is 94, and we're going to write x here. So again, we do a small line, divide by this big line, equals small line, divide by that big line. So this small line is going to be 60 subtract 50.5 divided by the big line, which is going to be 60.5 subtract 50.5, and that's going to be equal to this small line, x minus 72, divided by that big line, 94 minus 72. Now you want to start simplifying everything. So the numerator of this one just goes to 9.5. The denominator of this one is just 10. This one we cannot simplify, x minus 72, and the bottom is 22. Now we want to times both sides by 22. So remember, when you times a fraction by 22, you just times the numerator, and then we have to divide it by 10. So I'll do that on my calculator, and we should find that the answer is 20.9 equals x minus 72. Okay, so we can go ahead and find x, and it's going to be 92.9. So we'll just write that on here. X is 92.9. And this time we want to know how many students are below 60. So you want to work out this region. So we just need to do 92.9 take away 72. So just sort of the opposite of what we've just done. And we're going to be left with 20.9. So that's how many are below 60 in this group. So we know how many are above 45 and below 50. This is how many are above 50 and below 60. So to get a final answer, we add them together, 20.9, add to 16.5, and we should find that the answer is 37.4 students. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and have a go at the second question. Then I'm going to go through it. Question 2. Estimate the number of students who spent between 35 and 65 minutes on the homework. So you look for the group that's got 35 minutes in it, and it's this one here. Remember to make the data continuous first, 30.5 up to 40.5. Usually when I do these, I just do them all in one. So 10.5, 0.5, 10.5. But because we only need this group, I'm saving time and just doing that one. Okay, so let's draw out this to represent the class. So the lower class bound is 30.5. Upper class bound is 40.5. We're looking for the ones that are above 35, so it's going to be roughly about there. And then we need the lower cumulative bound, so we go along, and it's 17. And the upper cumulative bound is 42. And this is x. So again, small line divided by big line is equal to small line divided by big line. So let's work that out. So this top small line is going to be 35 subtract 30.5 divided by the big line 40.5, take away 30.5, and that's going to be equal to x minus 17, that small line in the bottom, at 42 minus 7, divided by 42 minus 17. Simplify everything. The numerator is just 4.5, the denominator is 10, cannot simplify that numerator, and this one is 25. Now again, times both sides by 24. Remembering that we just times the numerator by 24, then divide that answer by 10, and we should find, and I've done it all in one step, I've then added 17 just to get straight to the value of x, which should be 28.25. So we know that x is 28.25. Now this time we want to work out how many are above 35. So we're looking for this section here. So we want to know how many is between 42 and 28.5. So to do that, we just do 42 subtract 28.25, and the answer to that is 13.7. So there's 13.7 students who are over 35 minutes in this group. So what I'm going to do is just write that down, make a note of that, 13.75 for this group. Now we're going all the way up to 65. Now this group has got students who spent between 41 and 50 minutes. Well, we're going up to 65, so it encompasses all of this group. So all 30 students here took between 35 and 65 minutes on the homework. This one is 51 to 60 minutes. So again, all of these students spent between 35 and 65 minutes on the homework. So all 22 from here. But it's not all of this group. This group goes up to 80. We only want to go up to 65. So I'll quickly clear some room. So to work out how many were below 65, we draw this again to represent the class. So let's make it continuous first, 60.5 up to 80.5. So the lower class bound will be 60.5, upper class bound 80.5. We're going up to 65, because it's below 65 minutes in the question. The lower cumulative bound go along is 94. The upper cumulative bound is 106. Now, and this is x. So again, small line divided by big line is equal to small line divided by big line. So this small line is going to be 65, take away 60.5. And that big line is going to be 80.5, take away 60.5. And then on the other side, it's going to be equal to this small line, x minus 94, divided by 106 minus 94. And now we want to start simplifying everything. So the numerator here simplifies to 4.5. The denominator simplifies to 20. And that's equal to x minus 94 divided by 12. Okay, and now we need to times both sides by 12 to get rid of this. That just times this, that just times the 4.5 by 12. Then divide that by 20. Then add on 94 and we'll get our x. So the value of x is 96.7. So we write that on our little sketch over here, 96.7. And this time we want to know how many are below 65 in this group. So we want to work out this region here. So we need to do 96.7, take away 94, and that is just equal to 2.7. So up here we've only got 2.7 students from this group. So to work out how many are between 35 and 65, we add all these up, these four numbers, and our final answer should be 68.45 students. So well done if you got that. If you didn't, have a look back, check over your notes and see what went wrong. Thank you.